budget. I would like to know what type of impact, whether it's a pass-through or a budget line item, it's gonna have on our staff, and mainly like our business officer, our accounts, payroll, that sort of thing. And is that addressed in the contract? Will you be charging for those centralized services if it is going to be a time impact on our business staff? Is there a provision that will address the major maintenance and then any money that's remaining after the contract lease is up? Okay, so how will the money, so obviously the charter school is going to be funded through ADMs. How will that money be dispersed? So obviously on August 1st or whenever they open, they'll need money to pay, and the state doesn't necessarily pay from the beginning. Is that addressed in the contract? Will that be funded by the district and then reimbursed, or do they have startup money? And also, I want to know how this will affect the other students of Platte County. Will there be a negative effect on any of our students by the ADMs going through the charter school, if it's a pass-through or if it's a line item budget? Okay.
Thank you. And I think some of those questions, obviously during the visit time, we can't interact with you. Some of those questions you'll get some answers to tonight, and then after that, we will reach out to you in the next day or two and answer the rest of those questions for you. All right, and the second up is Shannon Pratt.
Okay, so I am a employee, past parent of 3 kids who have attended our district, and I am addressing the same item as Kristen is. Number 7, I've shared this with 3 people, Sean, Lou, and Amanda. My biggest concern about any interaction or contract with the charter school is that right now our district is in a deficit with money, staff, and time. If a contract is going to require us to commit any of those 3 things, I have great concerns in us meeting that responsibility within a contract with the charter school. Just something for the whole board to know that is a concern for me, and I know it's a concern for other staff and parents as well that I have talked to throughout Plat 1, how it's going to impact our staff, like Kristen was wondering, but also how it's going to impact negatively our students as well within our district. I've had parents wondering as well how that would also impact our students if there was a financial piece connected to the charter school, how that would impact Plat 1 students since the charter is not a Plat 1 school.
Thank you, Shannon. I was just writing that down again. Some questions may be answered tonight, otherwise we will reach out to you in the next day or two and answer some more questions. All right. Next we have the consent agenda, which include the May, June 19th and June 26th minutes, claims, and any grants or donations that we have.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as amended, including the minutes, claims, and additional bills and grants and donations.
I'll second that.
Okay, any questions? Any questions, comments? The minutes, the claims, or I don't think we have any grants or donations. Okay, with that, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, passes. All right, we're going to go to the informational items, and we will start with our superintendent's report.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna summarize a little bit about the summer goals. The first one, listen, learn, observe, build relationship with staff, parents, school board members, and the community of Platte County. So I've met a lot of people, and they came over to the central office to introduce myself to them, but the majority of that's probably gonna happen when school starts. When they have their back to school meetings or staff meetings in the fall, I'll ask every principal to invite me, I'll introduce myself, afterwards I'll get mingle a little bit, get to know the staff. And then like booster clubs, those kinds of things would be another chance for me to get to know the parents. So it's gonna be a little easier when school starts, it's kinda hard now when everybody's enjoying their summer, so we'll focus in on that, hopefully meet everybody in the schools along with most of the parents, so looking forward to that. I think I even know when the Glendale barbecue is, I think it's the 18th of August already, so I'm gonna get that on my schedule, so that's the first one. The other one, get up to speed with the charter school, so part of my job is to facilitate information for the committee, so they'll be sharing that. Anything that had to do with the financial burden on the district is what we try to investigate or to provide to this committee, and they'll be sharing that with you. So that was one of our main goals, find information from the State Department, look at possible impacts to the district financially. So all the little work from Jamie to Ryan Technology, we all got together and compiled information that was shared with our committee, which I'll share tonight. That was kind of one of the big, I guess, goals of the summer is to figure out what's going on with the charter school. I can tell you, there's a lot of unknowns still with the charter school, some financial unknowns with major maintenance, with ADM. Those are still things that aren't figured out. There's some conflicting statutes that we're working through. Our attorney is working with McKinsey, who represents WDE. So we're busy getting some of the information, hopefully forward, so it doesn't impact us. But that has nothing to do with the lease. The charter school goes forward in other buildings, they're still gonna have the same issue with ADM, but maybe not major maintenance. So that information, you'll be hearing a lot more from our committee members. Open positions, as you know, we have some open positions for elementary. We're looking at maybe a long-term sub position or trying to recruit someone that might have a 4-year degree. They could qualify for a license through PTSB, so we're trying to be creative. We don't have applicants in a couple positions, and I think everybody's in that boat across the state. So we continue to look at that best option. We did have an internal transfer and we kind of held off on that because that leaves kind of a gap somewhere else. We do have policy that says you can't transfer internally after August 1st, and that makes sense because it does leave a gap behind, right? So it's when do you stop that, right? Someone's gonna lose out. So we're trying to look at that more as a district level to try to come up with best options. Number 4, the budget. Jamie and I spent some time together looking through the budget, and you can see, I don't know if it was 4 years ago, when the district had about $800,000 in reserves, and slowly because of reductions and some cuts, they've actually increased that cash reserve. So it does look better than it did then. But in general, we're guaranteed money from the state, so we're not a poor district. Okay, we had it cut because there were some financial barriers that made it very difficult to have payroll. But as we move forward, once we get the ADM figured out, we're gonna start hopefully investing some of those funds in our teachers and our staff, some of the other positions that are hard to fill because the pay is so low. So that's kind of the next goal, I think. Just overall, look at the budget. How can we do some things like other districts around us, right? And how can we be competitive and attract the best teachers instead of hoping for one applicant? So that was that part of it. Clear communication, I do updates with the board weekly, just information that I think is relevant, anything that someone might ask them out on the street about this position or this situation, I try to give all the information weekly. I did have some other goals about some things were kind of needed to be resolved, and that was kind of my first update. Now it's ongoing. When things come up, if it turns out, I'll send them something right away. If not, they'll get a weekly update on Thursdays. So that's my last goal area.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we appreciate your updates.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
A little extra reading, right?
Just really well worth our reading.
Okay, so now then we will go into the board committee reports, and we'll start with the Prairie View, the charter school report. And Sean and I and Amanda are on that, working with John, on that, how that goes. So I'm gonna give you a little bit of an overview of things that we've talked about, and I'm sure I'm gonna miss some things, so everyone's gonna get a chance, everybody on the committee will get a chance to speak. And hopefully, in light of the questions, we'll have a little bit more information than I have on here, and we'll go from there. So what we know, we do know that Prairie View was granted a charter by the state in 2022. And as John said, many changes have come from the state and are still coming daily, right, Jamie? And multiple talks have occurred between Prairie View, Platte One, and the state. Currently, last May, the Platte One Board of Trustees did vote to not staff Chugwater K-12 and Glendo 9-12 due to the lack of enrollment, with there only being 2 students enrolled in the Chugwater school at that point in time. And the state school facility committee has deemed Chugwater K-12 to be adequate and available. Currently, Prairie View is asking for the use of K-12 building and to be able to lease equipment. This would include them taking responsibilities for the utilities, upkeep. Sorry, John, I didn't get your wording over here, let me find that. But basically, they have,
It was utilities, upkeep, and maintenance.
and the maintenance, right. So if we were to enter into an agreement right now, they are willing to, it basically, the building, that's all I'm talking about right now is the building. This isn't anything else, cause there's still stuff with the state, we understand that, but the building,
We can share what some of those components might be.
okay, so currently, if we don't, what it will cost the district right now to keep that building open, or not to keep it open, but to keep the building and not let Prairie View in there, okay? Right, and Jamie, please correct me if I'm wrong, or anybody else on the committee. It costs the district $26,000 for insurance, right? Okay. And that has to be paid whether we're in there, whether they're in there. If no one is in there, that potentially could be increased because of the potential for vandalism and things like that according to our insurance company. Our utilities, of course, would be drastically reduced if nobody's in it. But we would still have utilities. There is a sample lease that we have looked at that the state provided for us that does talk about utilities, it talks about maintenance, it talks about insurance and all of those things. So sorry, it's not just the computer that's having technical issues. What else am I missing? Amanda, Sean, jump in here.
I guess I've got a question. I need some clarification on, I said earlier I would do it and I didn't. Is the board committee for Prairie View on anything Prairie View, or is it just on the lease?
It was my understanding that it's pertaining mostly to the negotiation part of the lease.
I'm asking.
Yeah,
I'm not
Mr.
pointing
Weigel,
fingers anymore, I'm just asking.
No, I'm just saying, that was my understanding, Mr. Weigel has been in communication with the folks from Prairie View, so. As far as our piece of what our committee's about was fact. To gather the information, to get the facts, come back, report to our other board members as to what we found out.
So I guess I had a misunderstanding as to what my role was on the committee.
Well, and I don't think anything that we talked about is, especially now, and I apologize, I didn't get back to you, it was crazy at work today, but if anything you wanna share, you're welcome to share that was in the committee.
Well, I think that we went over a lot and there still are an incredible amount of unknowns.
Mhm.
I think there's still
an incredible amount that we don't have, Prairie View does not have, the state doesn't have, that still needs to be figured out. I personally think that includes the lease, I mean, if you, our business manager brought up an ADM question clear back in April. That just came to light this week. To me, that's still big, and so I don't know if something else is gonna change a month from now or 3 months from now. To me, that's important. There's still a lot of unknowns, it's not your fault, nobody's fault, it just needs to be dealt with.
And I agree with you, there are a lot of unknowns, but I think that what we know that we are not in that building. And I'm just facts here. A lot of the ADM numbers are not in our control, they're not in Prairie View's control. That John has been in conversation with the state. I spoke to Megan Dagenfelter on Saturday. They know it's an issue, they are going to be working on it, will it happen right away? I don't know, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, we have those issues, whether we have the building open for Prairie View or we don't. I had another thought. Sorry, it's getting away.
I can explain the ADM if you want me to.
Yes, why don't you?
So the biggest concern would be, as you lose students and they transfer, right, that goes into a calculation, and usually it goes into a 3-year average, so districts have time to respond if you lose enrollment, right, you're losing money, so sometimes when through attrition or for whatever reason, you can adjust your staffing, so you know what your funding's gonna be, right? So there's one statute that says any new charter school in the district will not have double the ADM, okay? Well, in this case, it's really a separate school. And the state has tried to treat the charter school like a separate LEA or a separate entity outside of our district, okay? Well, the problem is they're treating, the rules state that they would be treated just like we had a charter school that was connected to the district. So that's where there's some problems. So we would lose ADM quite a bit. The number of students from this district would be about 24. So 24 students times 18,000's a big number that we would lose, which isn't fair to us. And the state understands it, but they see the conflicting statutes. So that's the big deal on ADM. If they would transfer to the charter school like other students would transfer to Natrona County, we would have a third, probably less students as one of the calculations for the 3-year average, okay? And that's normal, if you have kids that leave, sometimes you can't control that. And you adjust, you think about your budget, you reshape your staffing numbers maybe to meet those needs. So right now, it's kind of like we have to have that money go through our district to the charter school, but it's a separate entity, it's not really part of our district. And that's the rub between some statutes.
Which they're working on.
Oh, they're aware of it, I'm not sure if there's a way around it. Our attorneys working with the state folks, they have an opinion through their AG office, so we're just kind of waiting, but I don't think it's directly connected to the building, and here's why. If we don't do a lease, that ADM is gonna happen no matter what buildings, if it's a church, if it's someone's house, whatever it is, right? Those things could still happen, or they would happen, so.
It is.
And there is a state statute that says that we cannot charge them rent.
Correct.
So we are only charging, or can only charge, if entering an agreement, we can only charge for the services, not the building.
Like the uses of the assets in the building.
In the building. So it's my understanding that since Prairie View is not asking for anything, I mean, because they're going to be paying their own utilities, they're going to be getting assistance from somewhere else for those other items that were of concern, transportation, food service, SPED, they're paying their own utilities, taking care of their own grounds. that information now has come forward that they're not asking for any of those things. So in my mind, what my takeaway from that is that the building is available and adequate according to the School Facilities Commission. And we would be paying for insurance and those things if it were empty. So I feel like, why wouldn't we, my opinion is that since it's available and adequate, if we can get through some of the bobbles with the state and what they decide to do, I think it's a separate issue from the ADM question. And we care about students and we want them in a building that is adequate for their needs, for their educational needs. They're students within our county. And now that we have a clear definition that this is a school not connected to Plat One, but separate from Plat One, I think that helps in the definition of things in my mind. So anyway, that's kind of what I gleaned from the last few conversations. I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think they were even working with, they were telling you, Jamie, right, that how much increase to bookwork are you gonna have?
That's still unknown at this time. They're still working on that funding model that's gonna say, at this point in time, they are anticipating that it would be for the operational and maintenance out of the general. But again, that is if we are entering into the lease and then how the ADM is calculating it as well. So that's part of the ADM calculation, is for the custodial worker / major maintenance worker would be through the ADM problem, if you will. I don't know what else to call it other than what it is.
Through that equation.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm still waiting on clarification from them of what does that operational building maintenance category do for our general fund? And that's just gonna be operational maintenance. Major maintenance is another thing that we're still waiting on clarification from the state. I sent out emails and have been in contact with a couple of individuals from the school facilities asking them if they could provide to me what the portion of major maintenance money would be, and I have not received confirmation back at this time.
Of the major maintenance or the operational?
Just say one other
Yeah.
quick
Yeah.
thing. So with major maintenance, people don't know, so that would be things that are existing that are kind of major repairs or replacements. So that's just with the building, so if the building needed a new roof, major maintenance would pay for that. The charter school wouldn't have access to that outside the building for those major maintenance funds.
And since we would still own the building, we would be responsible, or, it would
We'd be
come
tied
in,
into it, so
we'd be tied
I think
into
Elise would say the district would be in contact with the charter school to approve any major maintenance requests. So they could be tied in.
So I've got a question. So if they get the major maintenance money to take care of the building that we own, if it reverse a year, we get major maintenance money, we would just, if we didn't use that, we would stockpile it, keep it. If it goes through us and they happen to not use it in the next year, they retain that money, or does it stay with the building
So
after the lease?
they, absolutely, that's a good idea, we probably need some clarification legally on that, I can tell you that. But it makes sense that if they continue the lease past this, they would have that money to use. If they're leasing our building, that second year would come back to the district unless we leased it to somebody else. That would probably be my
I would think so.
understanding, so.
I think that's probably the reason that there's lawyers involved.
But they haven't been thus far.
Well, because we don't have a lease in place. We don't need the attorneys to, I mean, the attorneys
Is
can't
this
tell
even
us,
a good idea, is my point.
but an attorney can't tell us that. An attorney can tell us I mean, this is a decision that the board makes as to whether we want to enter into a lease agreement with Prairie View on a building that is open. The legal advice, and I agree with you, attorneys need to be consulted, but once we have the framework of the lease, then I think the attorneys need to be consulted.
And if the state hasn't presented anything to us, there's nothing to argue for or against, right? That's still not decided, so it's hard to get legal clarification when it hasn't been decided yet.
That's
Yeah.
kind of what I'm getting at.
No,
It
not
hasn't,
for that.
that's, I mean, we've got policies and procedures in place and we follow them or we don't, and we know what that line is, and there's a lot of, I don't know. So for me,
It's
still sitting on the fence post.
puts us in a tough spot, but it is new grounds we're doing as well.
Right. Yeah, and that's what I mean, I don't know that anybody has the answer, or I'm bold enough, I'd call them and ask them.
So I had a question, Sean, to clarify. You're feeling that the district should cover the $26,000 insurance?
No, we'd be paying it anyway,
Right.
is what I'm saying. The question at hand is, the building's available, it's adequate. Students need a place to be educated.
Mhm.
That's the question. All of the minutia of the contract has to be worked out. The purpose of the committee is to decide, do we move forward
To bring the information to the
Yeah,
board to
to,
decide.
right. So those pieces and parts are coming together
Yeah.
right now.
Okay.
My point was that empty or occupied, we still have expenses with the building, just like we have expenses with the building sitting over there on, Pine. That's just the long and the short of it.
Mhm.
Not trying to, persuade or
Right.
anything, it's
Just
it's just the facts. We will have expenses regardless of whether it's occupied or not.
So was your question if they take over the lease of the building, that they would pay that? Or is your question that we still have, I guess maybe I
Well, I'm
took your
understanding.
question differently than Sean did.
No, she answered what I was just wondering if she was in support, she's saying this facts is facts, and I get it, we're gonna be paying, or it needs to be paid. Yeah, I don't know, I don't know if that's part of the pieces you'll be bringing to us. Or if
I
that's
would,
even.
I would assume as more direction happens with the contract.
Lou, since I'm on the committee, can I have any,
She's not.
or not?
No, because our committee was just the board committee.
Oh, you're not
And
talking
we
about the
just-
committee that met last week?
No, and we just invited you in because it was a board committee and we invited you in, that wasn't a whole committee. And I'm sorry, we can talk afterwards, I'm not gonna engage in
Well, I just wanted clarification for myself, so I knew where I stood in.
okay, and we'll talk, I will get with you after the meetings. Okay, so with this report, and it's, I want you, the board members, to ask any questions that you want now, because later on, the board action item will be for a thumbs up, thumbs down on whether the board is wanting to go forward with a lease agreement with Prairie View. We have to have that before we can go any further with anything. And it has to be a board decision because it is a school facility. And so please, think of your questions, if you have them now. You've seen a copy of the lease agreement. As the sample lease agreement, it doesn't have a lot of numbers in it, but it is the sample agreement, it was in your packet. So I guess that's the report. As it stands, are there questions now? You will have time for questions when we have a motion as well. So if you think of anything, please be sure and ask it. It's a big deal and we need to make sure we're comfortable with it.
The lease agreement that we had may not be
The
the
draft.
exact.
Yeah, it's a
it may not
draft.
be
It's a draft.
just a draft, so we would not be voting on the lease.
No, we're voting on
Just
thumbs
if
up,
we're gonna
thumbs
lease.
down. Correct.
Just moving forward.
Okay, and I will now go to item B on the committee reports for IBB. Is that-
I think the board members up. Connie was there, was it?
Oh,
Dustin was
is
there?
that-
Yeah, they were on that last board meeting, or last committee meeting. Sherry, insight?
All I can say is after several meetings with the IBB folks, their final product and recommendation or request of the board, there was a lot of thought put into it. There really was. You know, it always comes down to the idea is, can the budget handle every single item on the request? And the reality is, maybe it can, maybe it can't, but that's kind of where we have to take it and go from there. And can we do a little bit of something? Can we do the whole thing? Well, that's, the next budget cycle will take us through that piece too, but really a lot of good work, a lot of really good ideas, a lot of really good initiatives. Mrs. McKee, Mrs. Boaz, thank you very kindly. I know those are kind of long and drawn out sometimes, but hey, it is what it is. That's how sometimes we get it done, so yeah, that's really all I can say about it is there's a lot of brain power put into it.
And it was good conversation. We reduced your requests, I guess, from 7 down to 4, I believe.
9 down to 7.
9 down to 7. And it was just refreshing to just have that kind of breathable communication that we could really think that through on, is this even necessary? You know, so a lot of came away really positive from that meeting. I don't have my notes right now. I didn't realize that. Yeah, but I'll keep that in mind going forward.
I'd be a teacher, I could agree with everything you know.
And we're gonna throw, she just at the last minute got the information from her BOCES meeting, so Amanda's gonna give us some more information on that committee.
So I also sit on the Eastern Wyoming board for BOCES. So we had a meeting earlier this week and I'll, as usual, be completely blunt, I have no idea what I'm doing. But I'm trying. So we had to also approve the financial or fiscal year 2024 budget for BOCES. So there's 8 districts involved plus the community college district in this budget. So it was approved this week. There's paperwork there. If you can't sleep at 2 o'clock in the morning, you're welcome to it. I've provided it. The last part is the concurrent and dual enrollment memorandum of understanding. This is something in the meeting that they have asked for each of us board members to bring back to our local boards to look at and take into consideration. Again, on the honesty part, I don't know when it's due and the lady is out of the office for July. So I'm still working on what exactly we're supposed to do with this and when a reply with something needs done, but I am hopeful that we will meet in the month of October in person in Torrington. So I did vote for that and I met with another person that sits on this board with me today and visited back and forth, and she's a little unclear as well. So we are both charging forward with figuring it out and hoping that we can do it in person in October. Hopefully, if it's not in Torrington, they're hoping for Douglas. That's all. Thank you.
So,
Any other?
I guess I have a question.
I probably don't know the answer, but I'll try.
So in terms of how it, you know, our piece of the puzzle here, because it says to be approved, obviously it's your board that approves it. But I am looking across here on Plat 1.
Mhm.
I see the proposed budget was higher than the final reading. Do you know why?
No, but I know I'm gonna phone a friend.
Okay.
Because, and to all honesty, these meetings are at 12:30 in the afternoon during the week. So there have been times where Corey has been my proxy.
Oh.
So
Okay, well,
some
that's
of
fine,
these
I
I
just,
have not been in on, but she may know.
I would guess that as of May 17th, we weren't exactly sure what the county evaluation was going to be, so how many mills we were actually going to be proposing.
oh, okay,
And then we also didn't know our final ADM number.
oh, okay, all right, but you have that now. Oh, whereas other,
Well, even the county evaluation, I don't think is technically final till, I think usually the railroad piece of it is the final piece,
oh,
so.
okay, all right. Okay. Sorry.
Perfect, I got a backup. Alright, perfect, thank you.
All right, thank you, Amanda.
Any other committees that want to report from the board? Other than that, I don't think we haven't had any other committee meetings. But now we know, when we have committee meetings, be ready, this is where you'll be talking.
Did you guys wanna say anything? Didn't have any, cause we didn't hear from,
They can.
they can't, their committee, it just us, sorry, but they're be quiet.
It sounds so, it is awkward.
It just, yes,
But-
it's very,
Well,
we're working.
That's why we do workshops, you know, so.
Okay, all right, moving on, we're gonna go to item number 3 under informational items, and that will be the business manager report. Mrs. Wilson.
Okay, for this board meeting, I was asked to do the business manager report on the budget for the upcoming year. I provided, hopefully all of you have a copy of the 6-page budget overview that we'll be discussing this evening, with also the disclaimer that this is all still ongoing until Wednesday. The priority of the budget is just to ensure that all students and staff have the resources available to them. I've met numerous times with principals, directors, superintendents, food service, major maintenance, all individuals to try and figure out what this year's budget is going to be. Budgeting for fiscal year 24 has proven to be the most challenging school districts have ever seen. The Wyoming Department of Education has been unable to release our final funding model spreadsheets for us to use. Therefore, with all the complexities of school funding, these are only funding, budgets are truly only estimates based on assumptions that we have at the time. The budgeting model that we currently use are again not a guarantee for next year. Usually school districts have received the funding model by now, but this year that is not the case. The model currently does not include school facilities, building and site data, audit adjustments for 23, final data for staffing, student demographic, O&M changes necessary, data validations, school ADM validation reporting is going on right now, and obviously the new SLIB approved charter school entitlement pass-through is a huge hurdle that WDE is working with the LSO to try and get everything finalized so they can release that information to school districts so they have a better understanding. They are unsure at this time for the release. We've been in constant communication with other business managers around the state. They're extremely frustrated. WDE is frustrated as well. They're trying to figure out all these new things as well. Currently, right now, I'm working with a model that was released on July 5th. As I stated before, it does not include some of these things up at the top, so it's a little scary to try and guess what I think that those added values are going to be. Since we really don't have the revenue side to discuss this evening, we're gonna go ahead and just look more at what is Platte 1 anticipating for their expenditures. So this year, we're anticipating the direct instruction to cost the district $9,182,625, instructional support at $1,719,13, and administrative support at $6,186,226. We currently do anticipate a transfer to the lunch fund, and like I said, at this time, we are not sure what the Prairie View pass-through is going to look like. It's all dependent upon the ADM portion. The following increases to the district's general budget include the following: health insurance at 15.5 cost increase. Our sub-budgets are going up. Most schools were over budget in this category, so we're making some adjustments there. Other professional and technical services, routine repairs and maintenance, utilities, adding utilities to our Ponderosa building that was destroyed by the snowstorm. Property insurance, I'm anticipating a 9% property insurance increase, just going off of past years. Required professional development for bus drivers, an increase in non-reimbursable fuel costs, a part-time tech aide, and steps and lanes for staff. The following decreases are made to the district-wide general budget: not staffing Glendale High School, splitting principals' responsibilities, not staffing Chilwater schools. We were a little too aggressive last year with our diesel costs, so we were able to cut some money there as well. And district-wide non-reimbursable vehicle purchases, we're anticipating not purchasing as many this year, and some technology software. Overall, the budget is set at $17,387,865. That is including the food service pass-through, but it is not including the unknown of Prairie View. Overall budget on salaries and benefits is $13,526,615. Overall budget on utilities, fuel, and diesel, $981,900. Overall budget on supplies, $559,995. Overall budget on travel, $65,600. Overall budget on professional services, $1,762,350. Overall budget on dues and fees, $24,874. Overall budget on equipment, $166,531. I just gave you the general budgets. It's a 3-year budget summary, so you can kind of see the differences and locate by location. I just want you to note that this does not include any district transfers on this spreadsheet. So you can see all the savings, and this page kind of explains. Okay, and then if you continue, you'll see the building budget per expenditure category. 1,000s, 2,000s, and 3,000s is how we split those up. Again, this does not include district transfers. How am I doing? You have questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
When you're talking about the unknown pass-through to Prairie View, that, I guess, is that gonna end up costing us money because a pass-through is a pass-through, right? Or what is that?
Well, that's the part that's unknown that Mr. Weigel was speaking to earlier with the ADM. Currently, the way that the Wyoming Department of Education is stating that we need to put this in for our best guess is to include their ADM for the coming year. And then we would take that line item out completely of what we're funded for Chugwater schools. Whereas Mr. Weigel has stated that then that gets rid of the district's 3-year average for those students that were previously with us. So we don't feel like that's a reasonable way to figure out what our pass-through is going to be.
Right, and I guess I think maybe I'm oversimplifying it in my brain or something. Because we are losing the 24, right, cause we had 2 kids enrolled, so technically we've already lost the 24 ADM, we're gonna lose them one way or the other.
You know, you could lose them in the average, right, if you did like a
Right.
transfer student, or you could lose them all in 1 year. That's the one that's really gonna amp up the cost to the district or the impact to the district, right? Yeah,
Right.
so the
I
impact would be
get that.
huge instead of spreading it out. And that's the part we don't know.
Right, so we don't know how it's gonna happen, but it is going to happen.
Correct, and so the way that they figure out some of the costs to the district is based off the ADM. Well, if we don't know what the ADM is, we don't know how much it's going to cost the district. So if we're putting the ADM at 66, which is their total enrollment that they're anticipating based on their March numbers that they provided to the district? Or do we put another 66 line in the model and keep our Chugwater school the way it was? It's very,
For the purpose of budget, you're saying?
yeah,
Cause
I mean, that's just it,
I'm
we don't
sorry,
know,
we're
we
not
don't
gonna
know,
take questions tonight, I apologize, we'll talk afterwards.
but I don't know, and currently it's unclear on the way that we are supposed to figure out the ADM at this time.
And just know ADM is also gonna be other school districts that would enroll in the charter school, those would come through us too, but we don't see any of that. It just comes through and right up to the charter school,
Well,
so.
and I guess that's what I was talking, or what I was trying to get at, the 24 to 26, whatever. That's with the state, it's our issue with the state of how that's gonna leave the district. We know it's already leaving, but as far as pass-through for getting them their money, is it just, it comes in and goes out?
By statute, we can't keep any of that for charter schools, so that money would just come in and they might have 100 students, maybe there's other students for other places, that would come into us and right back to
Right
them.
back to them.
And that's why
There's
I
no
would like
control.
to see like a separate school listed of this is what Chugwater was, this is what we would be normally funded at. And then what are they anticipating and then, but that's not the way that they have it set up at this point in time, so.
And by they, you mean the state?
Correct.
Well, so my question then on this is that where it really is, the issue is in that 3-year average for the funding part. But when you made a statement about they haven't released the final funding model, that's for everybody in the state.
Mhm.
That's not just particular to us.
Correct.
Okay. And do you have any idea when they might get around to that?
I'm gonna say October 17th,
It's probably a good one.
I don't know.
And then,
So I've got a naive question, whatever you wanna call it. So we go over the budget and submit it by statute, has to be in by approved by the 3rd Wednesday in July yearly. So I guess I need to ask the basic question of, so when does the money come to us that we pay people? And so when will Prairie View get money to pay for us? When does anybody get their money from the state on a budget that we don't know how much it is and we don't know if it's guaranteed?
So that's kind of two ways. So one, all state reports for Platte County School District are due to the state by August 12th that deal with funding. So if we get them to them by August 9th, they're anticipating to have more accurate numbers to us. But that was that was when they were hoping to have the funding model released. So as the year goes by, they true up. So if the funding model changes, they'll ask business managers to resubmit. And then they'll fund it off of that model that they released to us, and then they'll make adjustments. So if they paid us too much, then they would cut back our funding in the following months. If they paid us not enough, they'll start upping our payments.
And the true up month is October.
October. The October 684 is due, usually about the second to third week in October.
Okay.
So we receive entitlement payments as the year goes.
So if we were broke and didn't have any money today, when would we get our next?
Well, you
Whatever.
always get county money, because we're not funded just strictly by the state, we're also funded by our county. So I don't think that that's really a option for them.
You wanna know my point blank question? We have money and we operate every day. Prairie View's brand new. So they don't have that, so
But that's not our concern.
I understand, but if we're gonna enter a lease agreement with them and they haven't gotten money yet on a budget that hasn't been just like done, that matters to me, when they're gonna get their money to pay us.
Okay. It's in the lease agreement, if they don't pay us.
I agree,
Right.
but if you know right now that school starts next month and you're gonna offer a lease to someone that, I don't know, just my thought, anyway, you don't have to answer.
I'm not sure if they use that.
That's my point, but
Any other questions for Jamie?
So
This was an insight.
that's good. So moving on to capital construction, we're anticipating the following projects this year. The Wheatland Middle School roof replacements, we are in the process of starting to get a contract with Plan One Architects to put it out for bid. They're anticipating that it would be completed partially in 24-25 over the summer next year. So half of that project is gonna be completed hopefully in fiscal year 24. We're also looking at replacing the greenhouse at Wheatland Middle School, and we're also looking at the state retained money from our projects that we were able to keep some of that retainage money from our projects that did not go as planned, but we need to get some auditor input on that, according to the state. Food service, we're anticipating the increase in the following: health insurance costs, steps for staff, and technology costs. We were able to decrease the budget in supplies and materials, direct food costs, commodities, equipment, and miscellaneous expenses. As far as major maintenance, we've kind of talked about that a little bit tonight and how we're just awaiting the final numbers from WDE. The projects that we already know that we are going to be having, we're going to be paying for the track resurface. It's done, it looks great. We're gonna finish out the Ponderosa. There's some maintenance that needs to be done on the west bathrooms, a couple of split units in some buildings, and then we just kind of have to guess on how much we think some of that routine maintenance is gonna be throughout the year. Activities, we'll continue to look at the 3-year average trends. Special revenue, I've listed out all the grants that Platte County School District continues to use. I know the big one that everybody would like to discuss is the ARP grants, the award amount of $3,275,349.24. Currently, we've spent $824,574.81. The current plan to use it is on the grant management system, and it's also found on our website. I'm sorry, that link you can't click on, but it would tell you what the plan was originally. Mr. Weigel presented today a couple of options that he sees as being able to use that grant for. Today we had a discussion about that. And then mill levies that the district currently participates in is the EWC BOCES and the Hot Springs BOCES.
thank Jamie, she put a lot of work in it.
I was
So
just
Yeah,
going
she
to
did- she did a really
Pretty
nice job putting
awesome.
it together, and hopefully it was informative for you.
Yes,
Absolutely,
Mhm.
it's amazing.
and we were hoping it's a dress rehearsal for Wednesday, right?
Hopefully we have a little more,
the info,
yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully.
okay. Very good, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Jamie. You did an excellent job.
And then item 4 on the informational items, the director's reports, they are all in your packet. Did anyone have any questions on anything in there?
I didn't.
I guess I was curious, how are we doing on bus drivers? That wasn't in the report. I wonder how we're doing.
I talked to him just yesterday, or maybe it was this morning, and he said it was a struggle still to find bus drivers. So we're talking about maybe options of busing students from Chugwater possibly, and from Glendale possibly, we have secondary kids that wanna come, so actually I have a meeting with him tomorrow, to talk a little more about that. It's hard to find people everywhere.
Yeah, it is. And then they've made some changes on the requirements of the drivers.
CDLs.
Yeah, that doesn't help. People are wanting to retire. That doesn't help. There's a lot of pieces going into this concern.
Okay, and item 5, our June Parks and Recs minutes are in the packet as well. Okay, and then under item B, under informational items, we have policy evaluations. We do not have any of those this time. The policy committee hasn't met for a month or so. Alright, so we will move on to action items under item 8. Old business, we see none, and so we'll get to our new business. And we will start with the approval of the 23-24 assurances. And I would entertain a motion.
Sure, I move to approve the 23-24 assurances.
I'll say. Alright, I have a motion and a second to approve the 23-24 assurances. And any discussion on it, I would like to ask Mr. Weigel to kind of explain what that is.
Yeah, usually you don't have to do this, and this year I think because they're newer assurances, they did ask the board to approve officially, and that would be something that's why that was on our agenda for today. So,
So when you say that they're different, just because of statute?
any changes, sure.
Yeah.
Usually those are just the administrator or the person that would sign off, or me would sign off on assurances, but since I usually want the boards to have access to them, or their approval.
Alright.
Alright, any further discussion on the 23-24 assurances? No comments, no discussion? All those in favor of approving the 23-24 assurances as written, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, the administration, or the 23-24 assurances are approved. Moving to item 2, the approval of the 23-24 GEPA.
It's the same as assurances, so they asked us to approve those at the state level. Same.
I move to approve the 23-24 GEPA.
Thank you, Ms. Ballard.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Again, just measuring from the state. Alright, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Alright, item number 3, we have approval of SPED contracts with the new BOCES. And we have those in our packets to look over, and I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I would so move to approve the 3 sped contracts with Northeast Wyoming BOCES.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mrs. Carlson. It's been motioned and seconded to approve the 3 sped contracts with the Northeast Wyoming BOCES. Is there any discussion, comments? Okay, we have did on the packet, in our packet, all 3 contracts. We're gonna approve them all 3 at one time. If you, all those in favor of approving the 3 sped contracts with the Northeast Wyoming BOCES, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. The ayes have it. All right, item number 4. Approval of the IBB agreement for certified staff. We all have a copy of that in our packet.
I move to approve the IBB agreement for certified staff.
Thank you, Mrs. Miller.
I'll second that.
Mr. Captain. It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the IBB agreement for certified staff. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, we will move to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Item number 5, approval of steps for administration and classified staff.
Madam Chair, I would move to approve the steps for administration and classified staff.
I second them.
Thank you. Been properly moved and seconded to approve the steps for administration and classified staff. Any discussion?
I was to understand that this did make it into the 24 budget.
Correct.
Excellent, thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. These steps for administration and classified staff are approved. Item 6, personnel hiring, that was also in our packet.
I move to approve the personnel hiring.
My second that.
Thank you. Been properly moved and seconded to approve the personnel hiring. Are there any discussions, questions, comments? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Item number 7, the approval to develop and enter into a lease agreement to Prairie View Charter School for the K-12 building in Chugwater.
Madam Chair, I would move to approve to develop and enter into a lease agreement to Prairie View Charter School for the K-12 building in Chugwater.
I will second that.
Thank you. Mr. Kapka, thank you, Mrs. Harrelson. All right. Any comments or discussions?
Always. So something that I brought up that we have not all been to the same place at the same time to talk about, that I would like to talk about, is policy BCB.
you do.
So that policy is board member conflict of interest. Some of the highlights in this, it says that board members shall not have any direct financial interest in a contract with the school district, nor shall he or she furnish directly any labor or equipment to the district without disclosing his or her interests, it should say, maybe a little language in there. Another one says, no board member shall participate in a vote that has an effect of giving money or any other direct financial benefit to the board member. There's some other listed there. I was asked to interpret this. I know there's a concern maybe because of relatives being employed by the charter school, but I don't see the financial gain from that. In a small community, my belief is you have connections from neighbors, relatives, cousins, all over the place, right? But if you're not going to gain financially, I think that's why this policy is in place, along with board members can't work full-time for the district. But when I reviewed the entire policy, I didn't feel it was a conflict, and I shared that with the board.
I think as board members, we're all related to some reason for being on the board. Myself, was working with the district, couldn't do it anymore, but I still have relatives working with the district, and voting on things that go to them does not incur me any increase in
Financial gain,
so no
exactly.
financial gain. So I don't think there's ever a problem. I think we all serve because we're related to many issues.
And this was sent out to all the board members and asked to, if anyone felt like there was a conflict of interest, to please let me know, and we could certainly put it into a vote here at the board. So,
I guess in, following the rules of our own policies, the line that sticks out to me, I'm sorry, I'm looking at
Go ahead,
your-
go ahead.
and it's
I don't
actually,
know it verbatim.
it's actually policy BC 8.
Okay, thank
Sorry.
you.
Find it here.
Yeah, right here, you want to see it.
BCH updated.
I guess the part that stuck out to me, it says the policy is designed to prevent placing a board member in a position where his or her interest in the public schools and his or her interest, his interest in his or her place of employment or other indirect interest may conflict, and to avoid the appearance of conflict of interest, even though the conflict might not exist. And then the bottom line, a family member is defined as a spouse, parent, sibling, child, grandparent, or grandchild, or an individual living in. No, that's not the one I want. No. I lost the place. Well, I can't find it, but anyways, it hasn't been a discussion, so I was given that opportunity. Moving on, on the discussion, I guess for me, I'm concerned about what is gonna happen in Platte 1. Because I ran for Platte County School District number 1 school board in the election. To me, that's what I was elected to look out for the betterment of Platte County School District number 1. And the students and staff and whatnot here. So that is where my main focus is. I mean, absolutely no disrespect to Prairie View, to our private schools in this community, to Platte County School District number 2, no one. I mean, absolutely no disrespect to anyone. Platte County School District number 1 is my number 1 priority. And that's where I'm stuck on this. There are so many, I'm gonna say the words that are gonna make me cringe. I need more information. I just don't think we're there yet.
Thank you. Any other comments, discussion?
Well, I would think that, going back to your policy, I think it's gonna be rather difficult for any of us because regardless, like, we're sitting here on the board and employed by the district, you know, we have children and grandchildren in the school. You know, it could be construed that we're making decisions that I guess, you know, if we wanna go there, that, you know, you and I both serve on the activities committee, you know, we have kids or grandkids now involved in those things, you know. I mean, it's like, how deep into the woods would you wanna go? I mean,
It's our policy, so it might be a
Okay,
policy committee thing.
So, what do you, obviously you have a problem with me.
No,
No, with
we
my
can go there if
involvement.
you want, but that is not my intent.
Then tell me what the conflict is.
We'll go there. So, all through the election and whatnot, you were very open about having an agenda. You were very upset about what was going on in Chugwater.
I have been,
And what happened down there, the treatment of how staff and whatnot were treated. And your son being included in that. It's happened in this very room. And through the election. You've been very open about that. Right, so now this,
but when I was elected, when I ran, my son was a teacher in this district.
and
He was
now
in
he's
a-
not, and he's going to work.
I get absolutely I was pro Prairie View before the election. My son worked for Platte
Mhm.
and I was still pro Prairie View.
I didn't say one.
Well, I'm just trying to understand the conflict here. But I don't know, trying to use our time wisely here and not. So, but if you think there's a conflict, we need to figure it out because I don't feel like there's a conflict. Do we take a vote and see if the majority feels like there's a conflict?
Well, I'm the only one talking, so apparently there isn't a conflict except for on my part. And we do serve on the committee for activities, but we're not voting on anything. If it came to a vote and one of my kids was involved in something, I would have absolutely no problem saying, here's my piece, but I'm not voting. And you're right, there's a lot of people that are related or in whatever fashion. So when those things come up, which they have in the past, and you just say, I'm not voting.
Okay, so answer me this, what's the difference between Connie voting for contracts approved for her granddaughter in Glendo, being a teacher in Platte One?
I think because this is so heightened. This is such a thing that it has come to head here. We've been on the board 6 months. Give me time, I'll bring it up again. But I'm just saying, then maybe that needs to be looked at. This is our policy. It can always go to the policy committee and be
So
changed.
what do you want me to do about this for now?
I'm just bringing it up. I'm the only one commenting, so if no one else has anything to say about it, then let it be. But I'm just making it known that
It's good that we understand that, and understand where you are, and we all are good with where it is right now with our policy, so I think that's what we needed to is listen to what you have to say about it, and then if we all agree that we could go on with the policy as is, that's probably what we should do, and go forward.
yeah, and it's nothing personal.
Oh, I
I've
know,
told you that
I know,
before,
I know,
we've talked
I know.
about this, and it's nothing personal. But when there are rules, I think they need to be followed, and
And we work with that.
I'll be that
policy.
wild card to call it, I guess.
So I guess I will ask the rest of the board, are we good with me voting on this, or would the board like for me to abstain?
I'm fine with you voting on it, I'm fine with me voting on Glendale schools and all my relatives in Glendale working, so it's, yes.
Again, it's nothing personal, I mean, no
we
disrespect.
understand that, we just, you're pointing
I'm not
that's
quite
good
sure
you
that
do
that's,
it.
that is, but I'm just saying, I mean no disrespect, that's what the policy says.
Alright, so back to discussion on developing and entering into a lease agreement. Any further discussion, comment?
I think in light of all the unknowns out there, I think it is best to go forward with at least the things that we do know.
So that we can continue to go forward,
And
otherwise we're not gonna get to go
Obviously, there's
forward.
gonna be things change, we know that. The state's not gonna make up their mind overnight on everything, so just to have the framework and the mechanism in place to be able to work it, I think is imperative at this point.
Jamie, does it help that a lease is offered in any of your dealings with the state? If you can say, hey, I got a lease now, the WDE, that's not gonna make any difference.
I don't think so.
They're just gonna go as slow as they go. That's what we have.
So, I guess on that, I have a new question, so we go forward with this. Is there a time frame? Like, is this, okay, we're gonna do this, but are we gonna have to have this done, like, I don't wanna rush into something then. I don't believe that should happen, because there are so many unknowns.
Yeah, well, I think there's some automatic, and Mr. Weigel, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there are some automatic things, if we do get a positive vote tonight, when we still have to have the conversation about what the numbers in the lease, and then it still has to be reviewed by legal. And so it's not gonna happen by tomorrow by any means. So there's some built-in time constraints already in the working of this.
And I would say some built-in safeguards as well. Because the state is overseeing the entire thing, you know, so it's not like we're just out here randomly picking something out of the air to do. You know, there's some precedence. This is a little bit different because SF 0174 changes the wording of how they were done previously. But this is on the state, this is something that is coming down. It's a change in the paradigm of how school may be being done in different ways, in different areas, but I don't think that emotions or fear, either one, should be a deterrent to move forward with gathering, collecting information, and making a decision on how we help students have a good place to be educated, rather than some of the alternatives. So that's just my 2 cents. I don't feel the nervousness of this means that we now know that Prairie View is not asking us to provide all of those other items. So essentially, the purpose of this committee is to determine whether or not our building is available for use. And where do we go from there? So that's just the way that I see this.
Any other comments or discussion? Alright. So on the motion to approve to develop and enter into a lease agreement to Prairie View Charter School for the K-12 building in Chugwater. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no.
No.
That's 5-1. The ayes have it. Alright. And advanced planning on our agenda, our next board meeting will be August 21st, 6 p.m. here. But everyone remember, our budget special hearing will be Wednesday at 6 here as well. Jamie will be here with bells on. School starts August 23rd, that's 5 weeks from now, in case you were wondering. We do have a work session scheduled on August 14th that we will be talking about the vision, mission, and belief statements and some board training. And there will be another training in the next 2 months, but I'll get some more information out to you guys about that as I get it. Anything else?
Madam Chairman, I see something coming down out of WSBA for their fall roundups.
Oh,
And
schedule.
that was, yeah,
This
Yeah, so please make
It's
sure
like
you,
tail end August kind of thing, as I recall.
August 31st is what I have, yeah.
Well, actually, August, sure.
make sure you have signed up for that if you have not yet, please. Heather, Ms. Jones has sent out, the information.
Thank you, Heather.
Also, sorry, I forgot one thing in my, if you could stick around and sign the new signature cards after we've reclassified the board, I would appreciate that. Sorry, I forgot that part.
Yep, we can do that. Alright, anything else? None, I would entertain a motion to.
I so move to adjourn.
I didn't, I was like, wait a minute, that didn't make sense.
Okay.
Alright, thank you, Mrs. Eller and Mr. Kafka. All of those in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
I so moved.